Uh, Greetings once again. This is Tickets Please reviews for the second of three videos chronicling the last year. It's now time to take a look at the 10 worst films I've seen. Not to be confused with the 2024 list, these are all the dregs that I unfortunately found myself watching in 2024, regardless of the date of release. I guess I need to strike while the iron is hot. So expect some films I've talked about along with some I haven't. And there are a few dishonorable mentions, which we'll place between the bottom two entries to create an artificial barrier of anticipation between them. And I'll try to get to the point more quickly in the hopes that maybe a few more of you might watch. At number 10, the surprise isn't that the film made the cut, it's said so early in the countdown. Madam Web is a film that I've already talked about with its own video and in the 2024 one. Not much more to say, so I'll just recap it here. I felt like Dakota Johnson was badly miscast, and the film needed to decide whether it was 1995 or 2005 as the setting. If it weren't for Adam Scott being Adam Scott, this film probably would have threatened to be bottom 5 here. Over number 9, a film that is bad, but not nearly as bad as its reputation makes you think it is. The Oogie Loves in The Big Balloon Adventure is a film about three young puppets trying to make the birthday party of their young friend special. With the help of a chatty window, a vacuum cleaner named Hoover, and some songs, they go out in search of some special balloons. One kind of feels for Chaz Palminteri, whose best worker at an ice cream shop is a cow. But we're not really the audience for this film. It's for young people and stoners. We're always to explain the musical number involving Toni Braxton and flower allergens. But most of the stars are game. The music, although unmemorable, does switch styles well enough. And although some attempts at approaching its audience do seem a bit off, kids aren't going to look up in a dictionary what an engineer is. There's just enough entertainment here that it avoided the Cinema Hall of Shame. Meanwhile, number 8 offers an all-star cast and an intriguing premise, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. The Woman in the Window was acquired by Netflix after COVID-19 hit, and Fox couldn't release this one in theaters. Amy Adams plays an agoraphobic who witnesses a murder, and her efforts to make things right brings her across people played by Julianne Moore, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gary Oldman, and Brian Tyree Henry. Meanwhile, her tenant, played by Wyatt Russell, just wants to get through his life without drama. And did I mention that Atonement's Joe Wright directed this one? It's clear that everyone involved saw that this might play out as something Alfred Hitchcock might have directed in his prime. But despite some solid cinematography and an all-star cast, the script lets this one down. Despite having the lead character be somewhat of an unreliable narrator, the film never fully commits to it, and throw in multiple twists, one of which might be one of the most ridiculous ones in recent history, and the film ends up as a knockoff Hitch crap. And at number 7, just because the cover art of a video can catch your attention doesn't mean the film around it is any good. I first saw the Screaming Skull video case over back when back over at Blockbuster and and other video stores around there. It offers a complete refund for funeral expenses if it scares you to death in the opening minutes. Alas, the slow burner about a man trying to drive his new wife insane is more likely to leave you bored than frightened. The pacing of this one is too slow, and by the time things start to pick up towards the end, it's a matter of too little and too late. There are some interesting moments. When the lead female character is being freaked out by floating skulls, she's sharing her mental health journey with others and reaching out to befriend a house handyman who still misses the first wife. But much like the film itself, there just isn't enough there. Over in number 6, a guy with some talent is overshadowed by bad material and co-stars. Harlem Rides the Range is a Gene Autry-esque western starring Herbert Jeffrey and featuring an all African American cast. He feels equally at home beating up rivals, engaging in shootouts, and singing songs. There were a couple funny bits as well, but never mind the washed out print that I saw on YouTube. For a Western that's barely an hour long, there's enough padding to create 3 houses full of pillows. And the majority of the plot feels like something right out of Matlock, as people kept heading back over to a ranch that was a site for some foul play. I wanted to like this one more than I did. Meanwhile, at number 5, a film that should be lucky that it exists. Zan, King of the Jungle, otherwise known as Tarzan in the Golden Grotto, is a film where Steve Hawks takes on the lead role. Just don't call him Tarzan. Apparently, director Manuel Cano and 3 writers didn't get permission from Edgar Rice Burroughs, so he goes by Zan here. He tries to help a miner who healed him in the middle of a tribe war caused by the film's villains. Although Hawks looks good in a loincloth and both Kitty Swan and Kristen Nell look fine in their roles, King of the Jungle gives them none of them enough to do, leading to boredom and a feeling that you just wasted your time with this one. There's a couple funny moments involving snakes, and the jungle scenery looks nice, although I think there is a much more interesting film that should be made about Reeves' very bad week, decades after retirement. Next. Meanwhile, number 4 offers the most horrifying sight in a horror movie: animal abuse. The monster walks as like Harlem rides the range, and that the print offered on YouTube has seen much better days. The sound is atrocious, and the subtitles appear to be for another film. But unlike Harlem, this film also deceives mightily. Only one character seems miffed by the will reading, compared to the Amazon description where it looked like everybody is supposed to be mad at the heroine for inheriting the fortune. And the monster on the is not the gorilla in the poster, but a chimpanzee who seems to be screaming in agony. Misha Howard tries to do what she can with her thankless role, and Rex Lees plays a fiancé who supports his girlfriend and believes her story, which other people are skeptical of. But too much talk and not enough action keeps this barely a thrower from launching, even with a hose-popping climax that does reach the preferred level. Number 3 is a film that I definitely need to do the Cinema Hall of Shame for soon. Ruhi is supposedly a horror comedy from India, only it's not scary and it's not funny. Despite having some elaborate musical numbers at the film's beginning and conclusion, nobody appears to be having any fun. 2 reporters are tasked with kidnapping a woman by a man who plans on burying her. Apparently that seemed to be the custom over in that particular part of the country. But she's hiding something that could throw everything asunder. But shoddy execution on all parts and slack pacing leads to an utter waste of time and space. In 2 roles, lead actress Janvi Kapoor is widely likable, and that's it. Spend your time with almost any other horror or comedy and leave this one in the Netflix nether regions. And at number 2 is a film that I've already trashed twice. Unfrosted comes from the team behind Seinfeld and B-Movie, so maybe in about 20 years, memes of this film will still be a thing. Too bad the cast, which is used to being written and directed into funny situations, is stuck twiddling their thumbs as Jerry has no clue what he's doing. There are maybe 2 funny parts of the film. One has been a heavily spoiled set of cameos from 2 characters from the same time period, and the other one is a weaker version of a better joke done 35 years ago with Carol Kane and Bill Murray. It has a surprising amount in common with my number 1 film. Both films go in uniquely weird and bad situations, both films had first-time directors, and both films have a star who everyone was afraid to say no to. Oh, and this tries to recreate January 6th for a third-act comedy moment that goes nowhere, much like the rest of the film. Kellogg's plot probably helped them make this. Based on the results here, they should sue them instead. Before my number one, it's time to look at some dishonorable mentions. All the Places is a road trip where a strange brother and sister ride vintage motorcycles to Acapulco. Although, spoiler alert, both end up in better places by the end, there's no insight that reveals how they got to that point. And there are more cliches here than arguments by the two leads. Although the music kind of slaps and the leads do have some sibling chemistry, this is one trip that goes nowhere but straight into a road full of potholes. Argo takes the premise of Romancing a Stone, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and Julianne Moore's character from Assassins, and throws into the world of spies and double crosses. Although it is a bit of mindless popcorn entertainment, I must warn you that starting a drinking game every time there's a twist in this movie might lead to harm before the climax. It's hard to care for the characters and their plights between being kept at arm's length throughout and having the rug pulled out under us for all of those twists. Turns out the film could have used some rewrites of its own and perhaps a director that cared for how it turned out. Wolves is basically, I'm getting too old for this, the motion picture. The story of two lone wolf fixers who have to work together to cover up the crimes of a politician involving a not-so-dead body devolves into an exercise of charisma and bickering that reminds you of how good the Ocean's films were in comparison. Amy Adams had the good sense of leaving 15 minutes into this one. Frances McDormand had the better sense of not showing her face at all. Follow their leads in this low-energy, predictable action thriller. I normally can respect Joe Dante. Gremlins is definitely one of the better horror comedies out there. And it's his argument that caused me to give Wrong is Right a chance. And based on the film in question, I might need to take second opinions from other people. Although it does have a few moments of success in skewering the crossing of news and entertainment, the film's pokiness and lack of a sharp satirical edge keeps this one from being another Network or Dr. Strangelove. Sorry. Two films it really wants to be compared to. I know there's a bad name given to remakes of films, but remake this one with a director capable of balancing the satire with the human interest stories about the characters, and a writer that's capable of going there and giving this script an edge, particularly with that climax, and I bet you'll get people talking all the way to the theater. And for my number one worst movie that I saw this year, an actor lost in the sauce of his own monstrosity. Leonard Part 6 is a spy spoof that is incredibly low energy and lacks the humor to make anybody laugh. Gloria Foster and Tom Courtenay do what they can, but when Bill Cosby, out of the Cosby Show smash, looks bored and is stuck rolling his eyes while making quips that a YouTube film critic would be ashamed of, you know that you're in the middle of a grade A disaster. Throw in some repeated gags that don't work the first time, blatant product placement that is shameful, and a tired scheme to get the world's animals to turn on people, and you'll be stuck doing some eye-rolling yourself. Whether you want to blame studio interference or a clash between a star full of himself and a first-time director, the fact remains that Leonard Part 6 might be one of the worst films of all time and is a deserved entry in the Cinema Hall of Shame. Quellish. And that is it. The 10 worst films that I've seen in 2024. What is the worst film you've seen last year? Leave a comment in the section below. Hit that like button. Spread the word. The booth is now closed.